Welcome back. I hope you enjoyed my Americanisms explained last time. I'm kind of behind this week because we had a holiday on Monday, so I'm, was doing holiday stuff on Monday, and then Tuesday rolls around. Usually do a video on Tuesday and Thursday, but yeah. Anyway. Once again, back to Americanisms explained. Hope you enjoy what's going on here. And once again, I understand that we here in the United States, we're not the only Americans. We're just the only ones from the Americas that are called Americans. So we're going with that. Anyway, Americanisms explained. What do Americans mean by saying sending you love and light? The love part is pretty self-explanatory. Light, in this case, good feelings, good energy. It's a new age kind of, it's a way to tell someone that you're praying and hoping that whatever difficulty they're going through at this point in time, that it turns out to their benefit and that everything resolves to the good. That's love and light. All right. When Americans talk about pie, what do they mean? Do they mean savory? Do they mean dessert pie? Yes, that is what we mean. When we say pie, we mean pie. Typically, there's an American saying that something is as American as apple pie. Apple pie is a dessert pie made with apples, obviously, apple, cinnamon, sugar. Very delicious, but we have all sorts of pies. Pot pies are a savory pie. It'll have some sort of gravy with vegetables and meat in it. Typically, though, if we're talking about pie, we're probably talking about a dessert pie. That's what we're talking about. But we have the other kind as well. When Americans talk about 401k, so 401k is a retirement plan. When you are working, part of your paycheck is deducted and put into this 401k account. Sometimes your employers will match your contribution, so you can contribute so much per year to your 401k account, and your employers will match that contribution as an incentive. This is a tax-deferred account, so it's not taxed when you're putting it in. And as long as you leave it alone, it'll build interest in things, and you won't be penalized for withdrawing money from it when it comes time to retirement. It's called 401k because that's the law or the part of the tax code that governs the 401k. I'm not entirely sure on the wording there, but basically 401k is the rule or regulation that governs the 401k plan, so that's why we call it the 401k. All right, transferring to a four-year school. What do Americans mean when they say that? Well, not all of our colleges in the United States are four-year schools. It is typical that once you've graduated from what we call high school, which is secondary education, you'd go on to a post-secondary education, which is transferring to or applying to college, going to college. And we have several colleges, universities, what have you. Some colleges and universities will offer what are called certificates instead of diplomas. The certificate is usually just a year's worth of education. I say a year's worth, but it's typically more hands-on, more doing what you would be doing on the job, and it's kind of fast-tracked. So you're not doing what at college you would be doing, like math and English classes and history, and that you're focusing just on your your career classes. And so then if you decide after that to transfer to a 4-year school, you can then go on to get more education and a 4-year bachelor's degree. So we have an associate's degree, which is a 2-year degree. A certificate is usually 1 year. And then we have the bachelor's degree, which is the 4-year experience. And then beyond that, there's master's and doctorate. And each of those take a different amount of time to get. So if somebody's transferring to a 4-year school, they may have started at, say, a trade school or a vocational college, something like that, which doesn't offer a 4-year degree. And so they start that, then they graduate, transfer their credits to a university or a college that does offer a 4-year degree, and they go and they get their bachelor's degree. Not that they can't then just get a job. They're fully qualified, fully capable of doing the work. It's just that sometimes employers will pay a little bit extra if you have a degree as opposed to a certificate. So they do that to attract more maybe what you would think of as it's more prestigious, maybe. I don't know. But they do it to attract a larger body of potential employees to choose from. So they'll pay a little bit more for that extra bit of education. All right, what do Americans mean when they say bite me? It was kind of funny when I came across this one. The person who commented on it was like, are they vampires? Well, no, we're not vampires. Bite me just means F off. And it's a more polite version of telling someone to F off. So that's what we mean by bite me. But prior to looking this up, I was looking, just trying to find a image that I could put in with this saying, and I found out that January 13th is International Bite Me Day. So, hey, we, the Americans, we're the gift that keeps on giving. So, all right, living in the projects. What do Americans mean when they say that they live in the projects? Projects are low-income housing, typically apartment-style buildings, densely, small units, densely packed together. They're called projects because it's a housing development project. So that just is, hey, we're all about efficiency and shortening things, so we go from a housing development project to living in the projects. Typically, like I said, it's low-income housing, and there is a connotation that the area is run down, possibly has a high criminal element factor there. Ghetto is somewhat synonymous with living in the projects. So if you've heard of the term ghetto, slums as well is another term that kind of goes along with living in the projects. Now, obviously, different countries have a different or different connotation when it comes to slums, but there is typically the low income, high crime rate associated with that kind of area. So that's what living in the projects means. All right, so how do you dial a word? I've got right here 1-800-CONTACTS. This is a pretty big one here in the States. You see it pretty much everywhere. I have here visuals of keypads on a cell phone, and what you see here is the alphabet associated with the numbers. So each digit, except for 1 and 0, have certain letters of the alphabet associated with them. So 2, for instance, has A, B, C, 3, D, E, F, and so on. So if you were to call 1-800-CONTACTS, you would dial 2 6, 6, 8, 2, 2, 8, 7. That's how you would dial a word. So if you hear that, Americans saying like dial 1-800 call now or whatever, that's how you dial a word. People have a tendency to remember those words much better, much easier than remembering the digits themselves. So 1-800 contacts, I will never forget that phone number. It's 1-800 contacts, and if I need to, I just look at my phone and dial the number as given. All right, what do Americans mean when they say driving stick shift? We mean manual transmission. We have a lot, probably the majority of the cars in the United States are automatic transmission. So basically you have park, neutral, drive, reverse is in there as well, and then you may have a couple of more gears depending on the car that are like for low speed, high torque situations where you might need to get unstuck from, say, mud or snow. If you have a manual transmission, and I'm one of the few Americans who actually knows how to drive a manual transmission. For instance, the last vehicle that I purchased, I was looking for a manual transmission vehicle. I ended up going with an automatic, mostly because I didn't want to have to teach my wife and my kids how to drive manual transmission. My wife and my kids have no experience driving manual transmission. The only experience they've ever had is driving automatic transmission. So, not that all my kids, but anyway. Just on the off chance that one of my, like my wife or one of my children needs to drive my vehicle, I didn't want to have to mess with it. And so, for a lot of it, Americans don't know how to drive manual transmission. It's kind of a foreign concept to us here. However, I grew up, the car my dad had a manual transmission when I was doing, and this is another Americanism, we have driver's ed in high school. So at my high school, we had cars to learn how to drive. I took a class, and some of the cars had manual transmission in them. And so I did a little bit with that. I never really, before I lived outside of the United States, I knew the mechanics of driving manual transmission, but I wasn't any good at it. Then I lived in Europe for a while and had to learn to drive manual transmission because there are no automatic transmission cars in Europe. They're all manual transmission. So I learned how to do it. I learned to do it fairly well. I only stalled the car a few times when I was learning. So it did help that I had a good a good teacher when I got to Europe. Before that, everybody told me, you just feel it. And I was feeling nothing. They're like, oh yeah, when the car is ready to get it, you just feel it. I'm like, what? Like the Force? I'm not a Jedi here. I do not know what you're talking about. I was feeling nothing, and killed the car every time, stalled it. But then I had a friend and he was teaching me, and he said, don't feel anything. Listen to the engine. As you're releasing the clutch, you'll hear the engine start to die. And as you hear the engine die, you push gently on the gas pedal to keep the RPMs up. When I heard that, it was amazing. Night to day difference. I was able to drive the car without the hassle, and all it came down to was listening for the sounds that the engine was making, and don't worry about feeling jack. So, anyway, that's what we mean when we say drive stick. It's manual transmission. Dive bar. A dive bar is, the question is, what do Americans mean by dive bar? And is it the equivalent of a pub? In one word, yes. In another word, not really. A dive bar has a connotation associated with it as well, that it might be seedy or have a bit of a rundown nature, possibly attracting the wrong kind of crowd, if you will, criminal element kind of thing. So a dive bar, in a sense, is equivalent to a pub, but I've heard, no direct experience here, pubs in England, they're places you can take your family and get a meal. I assume that there are some pubs that are seedier than others, but dive bar typically has that kind of connotation that this is a dive. It's a hole. It's not a great place to go. But there's also, it's kind of changing a little bit now. Dives are somewhat seen as quirky now. There's dive bars that are trying to be trendy and upmarket. So it could be that, you know, dive bars are more equivalent to the English pub, at least the kind of family. I don't know. Anyway, dive bar a little bit has that connotation of being seedy. Well, that'll be it for today. I'll come back next week with some more Americanisms. If you liked these Americanisms, if now you're thinking, oh, that's what the Americans mean, that's great. Happy to be of assistance. If there's anything you'd like me to comment on, you know what to do down in the comments. Like and subscribe as well. And until next time.